You know, sometimes we walk into love believing that another person will complete us, like we're puzzle pieces searching for a perfect fit. But the truth is, no one can complete us because we're not missing pieces. Emotional independence isn't about being distant or detached. It's about standing whole in your own presence and then meeting another person, whole in theirs. That's where real connection begins. Today, I want to share with you the truth about emotional independence in relationships. It's not about pushing people away. It's about learning how to love without losing yourself. Let's break this down into 5 simple truths. There is something deeply human about wanting to find someone who understands us, someone who sees us, really sees us. But sometimes we forget that before we can truly be seen by another person, we have to be able to see ourselves. We have to know who we are, not the version we perform for others, not the mask we wear to feel loved, but the person underneath it all, because the truth is, wholeness attracts wholeness. When you know who you are, when you stand rooted in your own truth, you begin to attract people who meet you at that same level of authenticity. It's not magic, it's alignment. You're no longer chasing approval or pretending to be something you're not just to be accepted. You stop trying to fill the silence with someone else's voice. You stop confusing attachment for love. See, a lot of relationships start from a place of emptiness. One person feels incomplete, and they believe that if they find the right partner, everything will finally make sense. They think love will fix the loneliness, silence the doubts, heal the pain. But that's not love. That's dependency dressed up as romance. And it never lasts because no one can carry the responsibility of completing another person. It's too heavy. Imagine holding a glass with a crack at the bottom. No matter how much water you pour in, it keeps leaking out. You can't fix that by pouring more. You fix it by repairing the glass. That's what emotional wholeness is. It's healing the cracks within you so that when love comes along, it doesn't just fill you temporarily. It adds to what's already full. When you're whole, you don't need someone to tell you who you are. You already know. You don't beg for attention because you've learned to value your own presence. You don't chase people who walk away because you understand that losing someone who doesn't value you isn't really a loss. It's space being made for someone who will. There's a quiet strength and wholeness. It's not loud. It doesn't need to prove anything. It's a calm confidence that says, I know my worth and I don't have to trade it for love. When you live from that space, you stop clinging to people out of fear. You start loving them out of freedom. I remember hearing about a study from the University of Michigan a few years back. It found that couples who kept their individuality, their hobbies, their friendships, their personal time, had much higher relationship satisfaction than those who didn't. That makes sense. When both people maintain their independence, they bring more to the relationship. They're not looking to be completed, they're looking to connect. And that's a completely different kind of love, one that's sustainable, balanced, alive. Real wholeness doesn't mean you never feel lonely or insecure. It means you know how to meet those feelings with compassion instead of expecting someone else to fix them. It means you can sit in silence without fear. You can be alone without being lonely. You can love without losing yourself. When two whole people come together, the relationship doesn't drain them. It energizes them. It becomes a space where growth happens naturally. There's no fear of being left, because both know that even if life pulls them in different directions, they'll still be okay. That's not indifference, that's maturity. Wholeness isn't perfection, it's self-awareness. It's looking at your flaws, your past, your fears, and choosing to embrace them anyway. It's knowing that your worth doesn't depend on anyone else's validation. When you reach that place, love transforms. It stops being a need and becomes a choice, a powerful, conscious choice to share your life with another whole human being. Because when you're whole, you don't seek someone to complete your story. You seek someone to walk beside you, to share the view, to keep pace with your journey. And that's where the real beauty of love begins, not from emptiness, but from wholeness. It's interesting how often people mistake boundaries for walls. They think that setting limits means you're shutting people out, like you're building a fortress around your heart. But that's not what boundaries are. Boundaries aren't about keeping people away. They're about protecting the peace that allows you to let the right people in. They're not made of concrete. They're made of self-respect. In relationships, so many of us are taught that love means giving everything, that if you truly care, You should always be available, always forgiving, always accommodating. We glorify self-sacrifice and call it devotion. But if you give so much of yourself that there's nothing left, that's not love. That's self-erasure. Boundaries are what prevent that. They are the quiet reminders that you are a person with needs, with limits, with a life that belongs to you. Think of two trees growing side by side. If their roots grow too close, they tangle and compete for water and nutrients. But if they have just enough space between them, both can grow tall and strong, their branches touching, their roots deep and steady. Boundaries are that space. They allow love to breathe, to grow freely without suffocating the people involved. It's not easy to set them, though, because when you start saying no or I need space, it can feel like you're disappointing someone. It can make you feel guilty, especially if you've spent years believing that love means constant availability. But the truth is, the people who truly love you, they don't want your exhaustion, your resentment, or your silence. They want your presence. And your presence is only meaningful when it comes from a place of choice, not obligation. I once knew someone who never said no, always helping, always listening, always showing up, even when it meant neglecting themselves. One day they told me they felt invisible in their own life. They had given so much for so long that they didn't even recognize who they were anymore. It took them years to learn that love without boundaries isn't love. It's dependency wrapped in fear. When they finally started saying no, something incredible happened. The people who truly cared didn't leave. They respected it. The ones who only stayed for what they could take, they faded away. And that's the beauty of boundaries. They reveal who's meant to be in your life and who's just passing through. There's a quiet power in knowing where you end and where someone else begins. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough to stay true to yourself. A boundary isn't a rejection. It's an act of honesty. It says, this is how I can love you without losing myself. In a way, boundaries are like the rhythm in music. Without pauses, without space between the notes, all you get is noise. But when there's space, when there's balance, the melody becomes beautiful. Relationships work the same way. Too close and you lose the harmony, too far and you lose the connection. Boundaries keep the rhythm steady. And here's something worth remembering. Boundaries are not a one-time thing. They evolve as you grow, as your needs change, as your self-awareness deepens. Setting a boundary once doesn't make you cold. Revisiting it doesn't make you selfish. It makes you real. It makes you human. People often fear that boundaries will push love away, but what they really do is protect love from becoming toxic. They create a space where trust can exist, where both people can be honest without fear, where love is no longer about control but about choice. When you understand that, you realize boundaries aren't barriers, they're bridges. They're what allow two people to meet halfway, still themselves, still whole, but willing to reach across the distance and connect. That kind of love doesn't take away your freedom. It honors it. It says, I see you, I respect your space, and I'm grateful that you choose to share it with me. You know, there's this quiet misconception floating around that emotional independence means being detached, cold, or unwilling to lean on anyone, that if you're emotionally independent, you must not need people. But that's not what it's about. Emotional independence isn't a wall between you and others. It's a foundation. It's what allows love to flow freely, without fear, without control, without losing yourself in someone else's emotions. It's what deepens connection because it removes the desperation that often hides behind the word need. When you can stand on your own emotionally, you stop looking for someone else to fix your pain. You stop expecting your partner to be your healer, your therapist, your savior. You begin to understand that love is not about rescuing someone or being rescued. It's about walking beside each other, both capable, both whole, offering support, not salvation. That's where trust grows. That's where connection becomes real. See, emotional independence isn't about not feeling. It's about owning what you feel. When you're angry, you don't project it onto your partner. When you're sad, you don't make them responsible for your happiness. You learn to sit with your emotions, to process them, and then to communicate from a place of clarity rather than chaos. That's maturity. That's love with depth. I once knew a couple who had this incredible bond. They spent time together, laughed a lot, supported each other's dreams, but they also had their own lives. She would take weekends away to paint, to be with herself. He would go hiking alone just to clear his mind. And when they came back together, they didn't feel distant. They felt renewed. They had stories to share, energy to exchange, a deeper appreciation for one another. Their independence didn't weaken the relationship. It strengthened it, because when you love from a place of fullness, you don't drain the other person. You add to their world. There's something profoundly beautiful about knowing that the person you love doesn't need you to survive, but still chooses to be with you. That's a kind of love built on freedom, not fear. It's like two stars orbiting close enough to illuminate each other but never colliding. Each holds its own gravity, its own light, yet together, they create something extraordinary. A lot of relationships struggle because people confuse emotional dependence with intimacy. They believe that constantly leaning on someone means closeness, but what it often creates is imbalance. One person starts carrying the emotional weight of two. Over time, that leads to exhaustion, resentment, and confusion. The relationship starts to feel heavy instead of healing, but when both people are emotionally grounded, they can meet each other halfway. They can say, "I see you, I support you, but I also trust you to handle what's yours." There's power in that kind of love. It gives both people the freedom to grow. It allows for honesty without fear. When you know your happiness isn't entirely dependent on someone else, you can stop clinging. You can stop trying to control the outcome. You can simply love, openly, fully, and without panic. Because you know that even if things change, even if life shifts, you'll still be okay. That doesn't make love weaker. It makes it fearless. Sometimes the most romantic thing a person can say isn't "I can't live without you," but "I can live without you and I still choose you every day." That's not detachment. That's devotion rooted in strength. It's saying, "I don't need you to complete me. I need you to complement me." Emotional independence deepens connection because it creates space, the kind of space where trust, respect, and genuine intimacy can grow. It turns love from a dependency into a partnership, from something fragile into something enduring. When you can hold your own heart with care, you can hold someone else's with reverence. And that's the kind of love the world needs more of. Love that's chosen, not clung to, It's a strange thing how often we rush into love hoping it will fix the parts of us that still ache. We meet someone and suddenly, we believe their presence will quiet the noise inside our hearts. We tell ourselves that love will heal us, that it will fill the cracks, that if someone finally chooses us, the pain will disappear. But love doesn't work that way. Real healing has to come first. Because if we don't face what's broken, we carry it into every connection we touch. Healing before loving isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest with yourself about the pain you still hold. When we don't take the time to heal, we begin to love from our wounds instead of our wisdom. We start clinging to people out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being unseen, fear that without someone else's love, we won't survive. But that kind of love isn't steady. It's fragile. It bends under the weight of old pain. We project our insecurities onto the person in front of us, expecting them to fix what they didn't break. And slowly, we realize that no matter how much love someone gives us, it can't fill the spaces we refuse to face within ourselves. I once knew someone who had been hurt deeply, betrayed, left without explanation. They told me that after that they kept falling for the same kind of person over and over again, each time hoping it would be different. But the truth was, it wasn't the people that were the problem. It was the unhealed part of them still searching for closure in the wrong places. It wasn't until they stopped and looked inward, really sat with their pain, that things started to change. They began to understand that healing doesn't come from finding someone new to love. It comes from finding the courage to love yourself enough to sit in the discomfort, to process what happened, to forgive where you can, and to release what no longer serves you. Healing isn't pretty. It's not a straight line. It's lonely at times, quiet at others. It's about learning to breathe again without the constant ache of the past. It's about waking up one day and realizing that the memories that once haunted you now simply remind you of how far you've come. And when you get to that point, love feels different. It's no longer a rescue mission. It's a conscious choice. You stop needing someone to save you and start wanting someone to walk beside you. When two people meet who have done their own healing, the connection feels lighter. There's less fear, less control, less of that desperate need to hold on. Instead, there's trust, there's respect, there's understanding. You can communicate without shouting, disagree without destruction, and love without losing yourself. Because healed hearts don't use love as medicine, they use it as expansion. Sometimes people ask, but what if I'm still healing? And the truth is, healing never really ends. It's not about waiting until you're flawless. It's about reaching a place where your pain doesn't rule your choices anymore. It's about knowing your triggers, recognizing your patterns, and having enough self-awareness to say, I'm still growing, but I won't let my past dictate how I love. That's the kind of honesty that builds real relationships, not ones built on fantasy but on truth. When you heal before loving, you change the kind of love you attract. You stop looking for someone to prove your worth and start connecting with people who already see it. You stop mistaking chaos for passion and stability for boredom. You learn that love isn't supposed to hurt. It's supposed to help you grow. Healing before loving means you're choosing to stop bleeding on people who didn't cut you. It's choosing to take responsibility for your story. It's choosing peace over panic, growth over guilt. And maybe that's the hardest part, realizing that the greatest love story you'll ever experience starts within you. Because once you heal yourself, the love you give and the love you receive finally becomes free. People often talk about finding their other half, like love is a quest to complete something that's missing. It sounds romantic, right? To believe that somewhere out there is a person who will make you whole. But the truth is, we aren't halves looking for completion. We are whole beings capable of standing in our own light. Love isn't about merging into one flame. It's about being two lights that shine brighter together without losing their individual glow. When two people come together believing that they're each incomplete, the relationship becomes about filling voids rather than building connection. It starts to revolve around fear. Fear of losing the one thing that seems to make life bearable. That kind of love burns fast and hard, but it also burns out. Because when your entire sense of self depends on someone else's presence, it's not love that holds you together. It's dependency. And dependency, no matter how passionate it feels in the beginning, eventually suffocates both people. The kind of love that lasts isn't about becoming one. It's about walking side by side, both strong, both alive, both whole. It's two lights, distinct, radiant, and free, choosing to illuminate the same path. Each one brings warmth and brilliance to the other, but neither loses its essence in the process. When you love like that, you're not seeking someone to complete you. You're seeking someone to grow with, someone who doesn't dim your light to make theirs shine brighter, but who stands with you, encouraging your glow. Think about how stars work. A single star is beautiful on its own, but a sky full of them? That's breathtaking. Each one burns independently, but together they create something vast and infinite. That's what healthy love looks like. Not one flame consuming everything around it, but two steady lights sharing space, creating beauty without destruction. I once knew a couple who embodied this. They had been together for years, but what made their love extraordinary wasn't the romance or the big gestures. It was the balance. They gave each other space to grow, to chase dreams, to fail, to evolve. They didn't need to be together every second to feel close. They trusted that even in silence, even in distance, the bond remained. When one of them succeeded, the other didn't feel smaller. They celebrated together. When one of them stumbled, the other didn't rush in to fix everything. They stood beside them, quietly supportive. That's what it means to be two lights. To share your strength without overpowering the other. Many people think love should feel like losing yourself, like surrendering everything to another person. But losing yourself isn't love, it's disappearance. Real love allows you to be more of yourself. It gives you room to breathe, to explore, to become. It doesn't demand that you shrink so the other can shine. It invites you both to expand. When love becomes one flame, it can consume. There's jealousy, insecurity, constant worry about whether it will last. But when it's two lights, there's balance. You don't depend on the other person for happiness, you share it. You don't seek control, you seek understanding. You don't fear the darkness. Because even if one light flickers, the other still glows. Loving someone as another light means respecting their individuality. It means being curious about their inner world, their passions, their quiet moments. It means not needing to be everything for them, because you trust that they are enough as they are, and so are you. And that's where real intimacy grows, in the freedom to be fully yourself and still be deeply connected. In the end, the beauty of love isn't about becoming one. It's about staying two hearts, two minds, two lights, and choosing again and again to walk together through the world. Because love isn't meant to consume, it's meant to illuminate. And when both lights burn steady and true, the world between them shines a little brighter. Emotional independence isn't the absence of love, it's the foundation of it. It's about saying, I choose you not because I need you, but because I want to walk beside you. When we learn to love ourselves, we stop clinging and start connecting. We stop fearing loss and start celebrating presence, because the truth is, the most beautiful love stories are not about two people becoming one, they're about two whole hearts choosing to walk the same path side by side. Thank you.